Hi, I'm CP, you're on Bespoke Unit, and this is our review of the Flor de Cano Magicos. So some of the more astute among you may have noticed that I've changed my tie since the introduction. That's because I was absolutely gutted, but I burned a hole in the tie, and that's a real shame because I really like that tie, but these things happen, I suppose. I guess I'm a little rusty. We haven't done a video in a while, and we were thinking that we should get back to cigar reviews on what better occasion than with these Flor de Cano that we recently received from Montefortuna. They've been sitting in this Boveda acrylic humidor for the last couple of weeks to ensure that they're properly acclimated and ready for a good consistent review. I've had them at 69%, and they're there with a little Boveda Butler, so I can track that on a regular occasion. For this review, and for every other review that we do on BespokeUnit.com, we use the Bespoke Unit cigar formula. This is a quantifiable review matrix where we actually attribute the score according to the points that they earn throughout every single consideration, which includes flavor, look and feel, draw, combustion, and a variety of other considerations. You can go on BespokeUnit.com in the description below and download your own blank copy that you can use with your own reviews, and also read about our review methodology. So first things first, the Flor de Cano is a Spanish exclusive that is somewhat similar to the Gloria Cubana Serie number 5 that was released a couple of years ago. Same in format, it's 4.5 by 52. It's a Cuban puro, of course. I'd like to give you a little bit more information about those specific terroirs that we use, but as we know, Cuba can be quite elusive about that, whereas New World, which is Nicaragua, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic, tend to be a little bit more open about where they source their tobacco. Nevertheless, this is a nice little cigar. It comes in a box of 10, which you can see in the written review that we will publish shortly. I may also have an insert fly in. In terms of construction, we're looking at something that is nice and evenly constructed. I'll get one out of this Boveda acrylic humidor so I can have a close look while I talk about it. So here we're looking at a nice straight construction, a little bit bumpy, not too artisanal or rustic in appearance, no real visible veins, quite firm in terms of resistance. As for the colour, we're looking at kind of a cinnamon stick shade of brown. The oils here got a nice sheen to it. Looks like it's been aged nicely for a while. The veins aren't too coarse, it's quite refined. And in terms of aroma, so I wrote down in my review formula that I was getting cherries, raisins, and a little bit of tonka. With regard to the dry draw, the pre-lighting experience, I found the burn to be quite nice, quite open, not too open. There was slight resistance, less than most Cuban cigars. And in terms of the aromas that I got on the dry draw, it was similar to cinnamon, a bit of dried earth, and a little barnyard, which is a nice way of saying horse poop. With regards to the palate, as you can see, I'm nearing, or I'd probably say in the final third. In the first third, I was getting a little bit of cinnamon, as I noticed in the pre-light. Some copper, this kind of metallic flavour, which is very pleasant, and pine. So toasted pine cones, I'd say, something along those lines. In the second third, it was closer to, there was a little fruitiness that I would relate to cherries, tonka bean again, and a little bit of cedar. As for the final third right now, as I wrote down earlier, I put toasted cedar. So as you saw when I lit the cigar, I used a cedar spill and I lit it. That kind of aroma that you'd get there. Chocolate, not too dark, definitely not milk, somewhere around the 60% mark. And suede leather. So normally you talk about leather as being a potential fragrance or an aroma in a cigar. Here it was kind of light. It had this lovely fluffy texture to it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. The complexity was, it had this nice evolution, nice life cycle. In terms of mouthfeel, you can expect something that's smooth, got a nice velvety texture, a little bit tart, I'd say, overall, but pleasant enough, and it definitely needs a drink to accompany it. In terms of palate stimulation, I found that it was quite balanced on the tongue, so you had some stimulation on the sides, at the rear, and on the tip of the tongue. You can test that yourself by just taking a draw and letting it sit on the tongue for a bit, and taking in the way and feeling the way that the cigar presses and stimulates those different parts of the tongue. As for the finish, this is the third cigar I've had, not today obviously. I found that it wasn't fleeting, but the finish didn't last for very long. You did get some of the flavours that would endure, say, half an hour, maybe a little longer, but nothing extreme. And in terms of the residual scent, the aroma it leaves in the room, I found it to be quite pleasant. As for the burn and the combustion, so as you can see, I've had a couple of issues here that I may touch up later. This is probably because I relit it. Otherwise, I found it to be surprisingly straight for a Cuban cigar. A nice straight razor sharp burn with a little thickness to it. The draw was astounding. I really like the draw on this. It is got a little bit of resistance, but not too much. The angle, as I said, was wavy at times, but mostly straight. The temperature, nice cool smoke, and the backbone, so I had a nice ash of about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch at the beginning, plopped off unceremoniously in my lap. But other than that, it's quite good. It holds itself quite well, so you could get some nice little stacks going if you wanted. Finally, with regards to the overall experience, so I really like the band on this. They've gone for the old style of Flor de Cano. Flor de Cano, which is an almost defunct brand now that only does regional exclusives. I really do like this kind of retro vibe that it has going. As for the box, we're looking here at classic wooden cedar box. It's cedar all the way through. It doesn't seem to be made out of any, it's plywood, but it's classic box. Comes with all the trimmings inside, all the certification, as well as a nice thick cedar spill that I broke immediately, which is why it's not going to be in any of the photos for the review. So I got a little bit overexcited. I love using cedar spills to light my cigars. In terms of value, so a box will be 120 euros, a little bit more in dollars. I'm afraid I don't have the exchange rate close to mine, but I'd say around 130, 140. That comes to about, because it's a box of 10, about 12 to 14 euros a stick, which I find to be overall quite reasonable. And in terms of occasion, this is a cigar that I'd say you could take to any kind of formal event, but you could happily smoke it at home as well as to enjoy for a moment of contemplation. Or you can enjoy it with friends as well. I think it's quite a versatile cigar. And finally, pairings. Now, we don't actually attribute any scores to this, but we do like to use this as an exercise to think of how we could accord the cigar, in what kind of circumstances we can enjoy it. Now, in terms of meal, I would definitely consider having this with a white meat, but not too white. So something like veal would be great. Maybe veal ribs that have been barbecued on a wood fire would be excellent. Pretzels would be great for a nice little sack, something a little bit salty. Not too salty, given that it's quite a dry experience. And otherwise, if you're looking for something sweet, I'd say like some praline or praline chocolate would be absolutely wonderful. A little bit of that hazelnut in there alongside the chocolate that would really extend the more spicy flavors, more caramelized flavors in this cigar. As for the beverage, I would probably go for a Cull Ela, a lightly peated whiskey, so Cull Ela would be a great Scotch choice. Otherwise, well, not letting the name influence me, but a Flor de Cano rum from Nicaragua, the 18-year-old, would be great. The reason I say this is I wouldn't go for a Diplomatico because it's a little bit too sweet. It's got too much of that vanilla essence, whereas Flor de Cano has a much more natural bouquet, which would probably be more beneficial in the according experience here. And otherwise, if you want something non-alcoholic, a latte cafe would be great, because this is quite, I'd say, overall creamy in terms of the texture. You noticed how I mentioned a little bit fluffy for the Swede leather. That would probably be a better accord with a latte coffee rather than espresso. Wrapping up this review, I've given the cigar 79 out of 100 using these Bespoke units cigar formula. I realise that doesn't sound like much, especially when you consider the majority of publications, but for us this is actually an equivalent of a high 4-star review. It's an excellent cigar, pairs well with a number of dishes, has a nice evolution to it, and is an overall pleasant experience that can be enjoyed if you have only a little bit of time on your side. I like the 4.5 by 52 format. It kind of is reminiscent of maybe a Gordito cigar, such as a nub, Connecticut or Nub Habano. It has very pleasant, balanced flavours, and I certainly think this is one, given that it's just been released now and it's a limited release throughout the year, is one to grab hold of and maybe age for a while in your humidor. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it. If you want more, don't forget to subscribe, turn on those notifications. I admit that I'm a little bit rusty around the edges right now, but using the cigar formula, I'm going to find a nice, efficient and educational and fun way of presenting these cigar reviews. For more like this, I'm covering other verticals such as suits, shoes, fragrances, grooming, beards and the like. Head to bespokeunit.com and I'll see you next time. Take care.